Hey, it's Cody. I'm back to answer some more questions about the Army National Guard. So we're just going to go down the list and kind of free flow this thing and see what I come up with. First question is, what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced in balancing family life and National Guard duties? Overall, mostly, there's not a whole lot of family life balancing that has to go on except for the initial stage, and once a month you get the weekend, and then once a year you have 2 weeks. So if you don't know anything about the Army National Guard, it's different in that it is part-time military service. So the typical duty service commitment is 1 weekend per month, and in the summertime you do 2 weeks annual training. And when you get to your unit, you'll be given a drill calendar. Each training period is called a drill, or IDT, inactive duty training, and you should receive that information a year out so you can plan around it. So as far as balancing family life, that really comes in with the initial phase of basic training and AIT. You're going to be gone for a definitely a long time, and then any sort of deployments after that, you have to balance that that duty. You kind of cross those bridges as you get there. Depending on what type of job you have, it's going to be it's going to determine whether you deploy a lot or not. So for instance, if you were in a civil affairs unit, you might deploy a lot, or and that doesn't necessarily mean deploying to combat zones. It could mean deploying to different states and doing different duties there, or deploying to different countries. There's humanitarian services that go on. There's a lot of support stuff that happens. So not everyone that is deploying to combat, but they would be deploying in support of some major effort wherever they go. And during these times, you're spending a lot of time away from family. You might have limited access to phones and internet and things like that. So I think I'm getting a little bit far off about balancing family life, but typically if you're just signed up for regular guard duty, it's a part-time commitment that you can schedule. So balancing family life is not a huge factor. But in some cases, you might have a wedding that falls on a drill weekend, or you might have a birthday that falls on a drill weekend, and that's where you're joining the military and people say thank you for your sacrifice. You're sacrificing that time away from family, especially on things like birthdays. Now, each command is different, and you could check out your drill schedule and say, bring it to your chain of command and commander's attention. Say, hey, this is my son's birthday, for instance, and 6 months out, as long as you're within good standing, the commander has the authority to say, yes, you can miss drill on this day and make it up. Just make it up beforehand. Usually that's how that stuff goes. I will say there will be opportunities to go to different schools to learn different skills, and in this case, you'll have to balance your job, your civilian job. They will have to be okay with letting you go. Let's say it's going to be a class that lasts for 14 days, so you're going to need to miss work for those 14 days. So your job has to be okay with it, and then your spouse or family back home is going to have to, be able to survive without you for those 14 days. But that is about the extent of, balancing family life on a traditional National Guard time. Next question: how do I personally build resilience when I'm away from family or in stressful situations? Me personally, I have a series of journals that I'm doing. So like I've mentioned in previous videos, I have 4 kids. Each kid has a journal dedicated to them that I've kept from the day they're born, and then periodically every so often I will update it with current events and what's going on in their lives and the life of the family, what I'm doing in the military, and that keeps me going. It's pretty cool. It's a good practice. I can look back and see, hey, this is where we were 5 years ago, this is where I am now. And then at the end of that journal, they're going to have a product that they can look back and say, oh, this is what Dad did. Here's some life advice, you know. So it helps me journal from, you know, my past experiences and currently to where I am, to also give them something to look, you know, to look at and kind of cherish, you know, like, hey, my dad put this together for me. So I fill up a lot of free time with that. I still write letters. So if I'm going to a duty station far away for a certain amount of time, I'll write my wife a letter home. And, you know, I don't necessarily expect her to write back because I'll be home probably by the time she receives the letter. But it just, it's something that I enjoy doing, is writing. So I just kind of write what's going on around me, what happened that day, what type of training we were doing. Because also, being that I'm in the military, I think it's important to document what type of training we're doing right now, and then, you know, compared to 20 years ago or 20 years in the future. I just think that's kind of a cool thing to read about, because everything that we write, like, even though I'm not some famous person or anything, and my stuff won't be written, or my stuff won't be read by people, or it won't be in the history books or whatever it is, it's still a historical document, as far as this person at this time was doing this in the military for this branch of service. So, you know, it's cool because training changes over the generations of, hey, this used to be the way we do things, it's no longer effective, boom, here's how we do it now. How do I build resilience while I'm gone? I don't know, I'm just generally a pretty resilient dude. I've trained my way up to it. I've done resiliency training in the Army, so I'm generally unfazed unless there's like a catastrophe going on. I don't know. That's a fair answer. Next question. What resiliency techniques have you taught your kids, and how do they react? My kids are cool. They're super resilient. Whether they know it or not, we've run the gambit of resiliency skills that I've taught them. Most importantly is going to be deep breathing. Mixed in there is going to be a little resiliency skill called detecting icebergs. That's where you do a couple of thought processes to figure out what makes you tick and what gets you upset. And I haven't taken them that deep into explaining why we're doing what we're doing, but they're able to assess a situation and say, hey, you know, am I acting right? Or I can be like, hey, is that the right attitude to have right now? And they can, even though they're pissed off, they can still answer that question and be like, no, it's not the right way to act. So then from there, we can identify that, hey, we're not handling the situation properly. We're going to deep breathe. And I always deep breathe with them, because you can tell somebody to do something, and especially a kid, they're like, no. But if you say, all right, we're going to take some deep breaths, and then immediately go into it, they see you doing it, and they mirror what you're doing, and then that helps them calm down. And then you just kind of refocus. And I think deep breathing is extremely important for all of us, and it is a top tier resiliency skill. So I think deep breathing ties into energy management. So if I'm putting all my energy over here into being upset, I can deep breathe, refocus on the situation, find out that actual problem that's giving me an issue, and then we can attack it from a different angle, or realize in a lot of cases that, hey, we were misunderstanding the situation. So that stuff does, it helps with the kids. And I think, like, I wasn't trained that way as a kid. I wasn't trained to experience my own emotions or identify my own emotions. I was just, everyone in my household, everyone I interacted with was just emotion. And once you have enough emotion-based decisions, nothing makes sense anymore if everybody's functioning that way. So from a young age, I've seen it with my 4-year-old and then all the way up to my 12-year-old, how they handle situations differently. And it's pretty cool to have those skills, because I'm teaching the little guys, and then the big kids are able to enact it, and it's good to see. Those are good skills. Next question is, what advice would you give to someone new to the National Guard on building mental toughness? This is actually something that I've had to do a couple times with a couple soldiers, and I don't necessarily know if we have an end product, but I have worked with a lot of people who are not mentally tough, and generally that is a confidence issue. And some things can just be really like scary, you know, like even for soldiers who have been through basic training, they've been through their technical training, and they get to the unit and they just kind of don't know where they fit in. And you have a basic understanding from basic training of what things should look like, but you've never been in a unit before. So the unit has its own personality, and it's got its own personalities. People don't talk to so-and-so a certain way, or if something needs to happen, we're supposed to go to this person, but everyone seems to go to this person. So it's just kind of weird. But I guess a technical example is we had a soldier going to basic leader course, or I found him a basic leader course seat, and I was like, hey, you can go to this school. And he's like, Sergeant, I don't think I'll be able to do that. And I said, okay, is there like a work conflict? And he's like, no. And I was like, okay, why do you think you can't go to this school? Because you meet all the criteria, it's going to help you get promoted, and we have the availability. And he says, well, sorry, I don't think that I could pass it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So then I took my deep breath, and I was like, okay, well, so many people pass this course, you know. You can look out and see the people who are overperformers and middle of the middle of the pack, and low performers. And like, do you think you can perform better than the low performers? And the answer is yes. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, there's nothing keeping us from doing this except your fear of success. You know, that is a big thing, is people are scared to succeed. They don't feel worthy. I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or whatever they call it, but why don't I just act like I don't know what imposter syndrome is? Yeah, it's imposter syndrome. But he was able to get into that basic leader course and went past flying colors. I was like, see, it wasn't hard, was it? And he's like, no, just had to go do it. And that is most of the things in the military, is just go do it, because the military is going to train you, they're going to test you, and they're going to qualify you, and that's how it goes across the military, especially in the Army National Guard. You're going to get trained, you're going to get tested, and if you fail the test, you're probably going to get retested, and then you're going to get qualified and move on. When it comes to building toughness, building mental toughness, there is a strategy that I use where we're one-on-one working together, and then I'll say, well, here's a practical exercise. Let's take something that you have accomplished, and when working with another soldier, it is going to, at a bare minimum, they have passed basic training in their AIT. So that may have been the hardest thing that they've been through. Some people have gotten their associate's or bachelor's degree. That might have been the hardest thing that they've done. You know, whatever pursuit it is. They won some sort of championship in high school or college. You know, you can just pull different things. And if you're trying to build mental toughness yourself, this is the practice. What have you done that's hard? And the thing is, okay, yeah, we've done this hard thing. Now, what did we do to overcome that? Or how did we accomplish that? What hurdles did we have to go through to pass this thing? It's like, okay, boom, now you've gotten all your roadblocks that you have overcome to do this challenging thing, and now you kind of know where you stand. So you know what you're capable of. And if you're capable of that, then you find something that is comparable to whatever you're pursuing now. So if you come into, you've been in the National Guard for a little bit, you're in E4, you're ready to get promoted to E5, which is a sergeant. A lot of people get here and they kind of get stunted. If leadership is the problem, going off the mental toughness thing a little bit, like, if I would say study the leadership. This is just an example. Study leadership. Army has tons of doctrine on it. And if you're already a soldier, then you have access to this doctrine. And there's also tons of leadership books on the civilian side. Study leadership, study the things that you need to know, and just jump into it. It's okay to be scared, but do it anyway. Do it scared. And once you've done something scared, you'll look back and say, oh, it's so childish. I could have done that. And the same thing is like whatever you've done in the past, how did you get through that? Apply it to what you're about to do. Because as you look back on certain things, you got to remember there was a time you were scared as a child to go to the bathroom by yourself. There was a time that you were scared as a child to go to school by yourself. And then you got to high school, you were scared to try out for that team. You were scared to go to college. You were scared to go to work that first day. Like all these things we're scared to do, but you just do them, right? And you just stop. Don't let fear control you. And then no matter how small of an accomplishment that is, remember, hey, I did that thing and I can do other things. Because it's okay to have, fear of the unknown, but you still have to push through that. Not doing something because it presents an imminent danger is different than doing something because you don't know the outcome. Here's a good question. What should I focus on to make a good impression of my unit and advance quickly? Super common question. But I'm going to break it into two parts because you can make a good impression. This other part about advancing quickly, here's a rule of thumb is just don't even think about that, right? Everyone wants to advance quickly no matter what they're doing, but in the military especially, we wear rank on our chest. You're going to look at someone and you say, okay, this person's E5, they've been deployed, they've been to combat, just based off their uniform. So people do advance quickly, and some people advance a little too quickly and they're immature in the position or they don't know the position, and then they're put in charge of other people. And that can be disheartening for new people who don't know what to expect, and they got a doofus in a leadership position, which is, that is kind of, I think we've all been there, like experience having subpar leadership. So that's why I say don't focus on advancing quickly, because if you get there and focus on the first part of this question, what should I do to make a good impression on my unit? Yes, in the National Guard, there are some times that you don't know where the unit is that you're going to be going to. So stay in touch with your recruiter about where the unit is. Get a good point of contact from that unit and do what's called a battle handoff. It's not your responsibility, but if you are going through as a new soldier and this all sounds new to you, contact your recruiter and say, hey, I want to get a battle handoff with my unit. That's where the unit gets in touch. That's where the recruiter gets in touch with the unit and does a proper introduction. For instance, when I came out of AIT, I knew where my unit was, but I hadn't made contact with them. And I was 18, and I went the first month after AIT, I didn't go to drill. The second month after AIT, I didn't go to drill because I hadn't heard from anybody. So in the third month, I just started making calls, and I found out where the unit was, and I just went up there, and like on a drill weekend, I called around enough to find out when drill was and went up there, and they were not expecting me. And that is dependent, that's based on your unit. If everyone's on there doing their job, then they're supposed to expect and meet up with their new soldiers. In this case, they were getting ready for deployment, and I was just kind of, the new guy. I showed up, and the first sergeant was the first person I met, and I'm like, going to parade rest and everything, and he was this old Southern dude. He's like, what's going on, Puckett? How you doing? Just talking to me like I'm a friend, and I'm fresh out of basic training in AIT, and I didn't know first sergeants were going to be talking to me. I'm, well, Roger, first sergeant, I was really nervous and everything. But yeah, so get in touch with that unit, show up on time. Don't get slack on your PT. This isn't like one of those things in the National Guard. It isn't like, oh, this guy can't do his push-ups, he's bringing the whole unit down. This guy is, or he can't run fast, he's bringing the whole unit down. The National Guard is much more focused on the individual, where we're not training 28 days a month. You're there for that 2 days a weekend. So if you go in and you fail your PT test, it's going to be really hard to come back from that, month to month. So stay on top of your PT. Stay on top of your training. No one's going to manage your career for you. And like active duty, you constantly have mentorship where, someone's like, hey, have you been to this school? No? Well, you need to do the preparatory work to get ready to go to that school. In the National Guard, if you have a good NCO or a good, chain of command, that will happen. But sometimes in the National Guard, you will be left to doing a lot of that on your own. So manage your career, find out what you need to do to manage your career. There's tons of things that you can look up on YouTube about what you should be doing at certain ranks. The Army uses a tool called Army Career Tracker, which is a very good tool. And if you go into a National Guard unit understanding how career progression is supposed to work and understanding your job, then you're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of people because they don't do any sort of research. I'd say the vast majority of people don't do research. I'd say most people are not doing any sort of research about career progression. I think the overall knowledge is, you're in for a certain amount of time, you have a certain amount of experience, you get promoted, but there's technical steps you have to make. Those things do matter, but also you have to knock out certain classes, and you have to have certain, you have to be slotted in a certain position within the unit. So learning how the promotion system works is ultimately beneficial. There's a teamwork aspect too to making a good first impression. So when you come in from AIT, you're going to be a private, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you're the low person on the totem pole. So your willingness to be coachable, your willingness to close your mouth and pay attention and receive the training that your chain of command has to give you, that is going to make a terrific first impression. And it says, okay, this person comes in, they have a good work ethic, they listen, and when I ask them to do something, they perform and they exceed or excel. So once you can do those things, is shut up, pay attention, and execute, then people start asking your opinion. So you have to shut up a lot less, right? Because they know now that you're a person that can get a job done, and you'll be put in and given more responsibilities. This is where people, weigh it and say, well, I'm not in a leadership position, so I'm not going to take on a leadership role. And that's a method of doing those things. But if you do take on more responsibility at your current rank, then you'll be looked at in a brighter light when it comes time for promotions. So, or at least you can be, That's my opinion on it anyway. For instance, if I'm new to a unit, I'm a private E2 or E3, and I walk past a trash can and it's overflowing. Well, whether I'm told to or not, I'm going to take that trash can out and, take the bag out, put a new bag in it, and move on with my life. And what I see far too often is people let that trash can overflow, and it's just like, I wish that everybody had the mentality to take out the trash can, Just imagine if we all had that mindset that I'm going to take out the trash can, I'm not going to let it overflow, I'm not going to wait on someone else to do it. Like, if we all had that mentality, that would be teamwork 101. We wouldn't have to worry about anything going undone. If you focus on advancing quickly, focus on learning your job and making a good impression at your unit first, and the rank will come with time. All right, here's a good question. What do you wish that you'd known about staying fit and prepared between drill weekends. Yeah, this is solid, because when you get to, I guess it is just kind of, this is a well-known thing. If you have Google, I'm not the first person saying it. The National Guard is known for not being the most fit section of the military, and that is, like I said earlier, it's partly on the individual. You got to keep yourself fit 28 days out of the month. After you get through your basic training in AIT, 28 days out of the month, it's on you. You're not reporting to a unit. You're not doing, PT, physical training, with your unit. Now, your unit can mandate you do it. They can say, hey, well, we'd like you to get the, this running app and this dietary app. But at the end of the day, are you going to do that? That's on you. For those 28 days, you got to get up and you got to run and you got to hit the gym. You got to eat right. Eating right is so important. So what do I wish I knew? I wish I would have known how to eat right, because I did not have any sort of nutritional knowledge. Now anybody on YouTube can go on there and say, okay, well, the most important thing for losing weight is being in a calorie deficit and focus on high protein diet. And I mean, anybody can look like a superstar now, but once you put on a lot of weight, which I did, it's very difficult to come off of that, because you're being assessed on your physical fitness as well as your body composition. So you're going to have your body measured at a certain to determine your body fat, and once you've failed the body fat, it is and your PT, it is extremely, what's the word? It's disheartening. It sucks to fail, and you have other people. Hold on, I get real passionate about this, so let's figure this one out. You're being assessed on your physical fitness, so that's your ability to pass the PT test. So the Army has instituted the ACFT, which is the Army Combat Physical Fitness Test, right? It is a series of events that does different things. There's deadlift, push-ups, plank, sprint, drag, carry, ball toss, and running. And I might have forgot some, but whatever it is. The test is extremely easy to pass. It's extremely difficult to max. And a lot of people focus on doing the minimum in each event, which is 60%. The problem is, if you train for meeting 60%, your margin for error is so high that your margin for error for failing is so high that that's dangerous. So I would always say, and this is what I do, is I try my best in every event. And that means you have to train for it, but it's not difficult. The only thing that you cannot train for, that you need weights for, is the deadlift and the kettlebells. Everything else, well, I guess the ball toss too, technically, but you can put together 10 pounds and chunk it over your head, that sort of thing. Regardless, that's a trainable skill. The other thing about fitness between drill weekends is your body composition, which is done based off of a tape measurement around your midsection. Once you fail that, it's disheartening, and it's really hard to come back. So the most important thing about keeping fit in between drill periods is never getting unfit. You've made a commitment. You've gone to basic and AIT. You've become a soldier. Keep yourself physically and mentally tough, right? Because it is so hard to come back from that. And then when you fail weight or height and weight, is what they call it. You fail tape. Most people don't fail that. So you feel isolated. You feel, and then you start to. You don't have to start this way. You could say, oh, well, I'll try better next time and do real positive and then lose the weight and get on with life. But what happens a lot of times is you feel isolated, and that leads to like, oh, I'm not good enough, and then these other downward spiral of negative emotions. And next thing you know, you've spent another month between drills not doing the right thing, not eating properly, not working out enough, and then you're going to get taped again, and then it just starts this cycle. I know high quality soldiers who had put on weight early in their career, and they're still stuck at the ranks of E4 and below, and they've just never made that push, because you cannot get promoted if you have a continuously failing height and weight score or a PT score. So it's not really a height and weight score, but if you're failing height and weight or you're failing PT, you're going to be flagged and you can't promote on. So it's also very simple to maintain a good physical fitness. If you do push-ups, sit-ups, and running, and that's all you do is like calisthenics and some good stretching and ab work, and you keep your diet heavy in protein and lots of vegetables, like eat really clean, it's going to be very difficult to put on fat, and you're doing calisthenics all the time. That is perfectly fine to keep you in good soldier shape for your drill weekends. So if you don't know about nutrition and you're heavy right now and it's hard to lose weight, start studying up on nutrition. There's plenty of knowledge on YouTube. Get that taken care of if you're thinking about joining the Army National Guard. If you're in the Army National Guard and you're failing, tighten up. Yeah, but between drill weekends, it is going to be, it's a beast. It's easy to put on weight, so you got to have a right mindset. Last question I'm going to look at right now is what is one piece of advice that you'd give for staying motivated and focused during drill weekends, especially when the routine feels repetitive? Yes. A piece of advice I always say is have a notebook. I have a notebook, or a series of notebooks now, that I've written everything that I've ever learned, like soldier wise, so I can go back and reference the material. And around years 4 and 5, I started asking my leadership, why are we doing the same tasks as last year, and the year before that, and the year prior to that? Like, aren't we building towards something? And it took me a long time to realize how the Army trains, and there's never going to be a level of, hey, we're training up to go do some Mission Impossible stuff. You know, the Army is sectioned off in different branches of jobs that do different things, and that branch does that thing. And it's very, very seldom that a new thing comes around. For instance, engineers are going to be putting up obstacles, they're going to be destroying obstacles, and they're going to be doing field time, survivability, camping, setting up communication bases, and truck drivers. If you pick that job, that truck is going to be driving, and you're going to be pulling this trailer over here. You know, the things. So as far as the question goes, it does feel repetitive and it can feel routine, but there's intricacies within it. So instead of trying to focus on expanding out to like, what are we doing next, focus on those intricacies of the actual job. One thing you can do is take control of your own training. As that training has become routine, especially if you're E4, E5, volunteer to take control of the training. This means reaching out to your chain of command, whoever typically does those things, and say, hey, next month, or schedule it the following 2 months, I would like to do X, Y, and Z thing, and I want to take everybody through this mission set. This is going to be probably a delight for them, because if it's feeling routine for you, it's definitely feeling routine for your leadership. So they're going to get a break. They're going to get something new to do, because they're going to be able to evaluate you, and whether it's good or bad, you'll have a after action review, AAR, after it, and you can come up with all the things that went well or all the things that were just absolute crap. But regardless, you've been doing something new. Not every idea is a good one, but you can't find the good ones until you shuffle through all the other ones, So I'd say taking ownership of the training. That is something that is constant, especially at the E6 level. Any E6 throughout the Army, and the Army National Guard especially, walk into a drill hall and just see soldiers sitting around at tables on their phones, or just, you know, talking and laughing it up in groups for extended periods of time. It's like, okay, well, if I were in charge of that group, I know what I would have them doing. So if you're an E4 and you're feeling this pull of like boredom, like we are doing nothing around here, well, technically it's your E5's job to be giving you training to do. And if that person's not doing it, then the squad leader, E6, should be doing it. And at, you know, there's a whole structure of who should be doing what. And if it's not taking place, and I would say not training is going to be the biggest thing about the routine and it feeling repetitive, is take control of that training at some level, however you can, and whatever you would like to have happen, implement that. Because the reason I say this is, no matter what your rank is, if your group is sitting around doing nothing, then there's already no oversight. So be that person who says, hey, let's implement this training, let's conduct this training, let's do it now, and then try to get try to get something in motion to where, like, hey, we're not just a sit around and do nothing unit, we're a get up and train unit. So whatever you want to see happen, make it happen, because you're not going to get in trouble for training. That's what I had for the day. I just wanted to make a video and get something, you know, get some questions answered. If you have questions of your own, put them in the comments. My name's Cody. I'm out.